Olá, boa noite. Welcome to our second podcast. My name is Carla Sabala and I'm with...
Marlon Sabala.
That's right. And we have gotten some feedback from the first podcast and we are going to try to make it a little bit more fun, still using the same methods we have used for the first one.
That's correct, right. So each little lesson we'll try and introduce new words. Obviously this is only the second one, so we're going to try and introduce simple words, things that you're likely to use once you are in Portugal or Brazil. But yeah, it should be good. So what's the theme for today then, Carla?
Well, we'll be asking for directions, really, for a particular place. So today we're going to ask where we can find the nearest chemist.
Okay, all right. So we'll then go from there.
Yeah.
All right, whenever you're ready, Carla.
Okay.
So, sorry, you're going to play the person on the street asking for directions.
The tourist, yeah.
Right, and I'm going to play the chap in the street, walking about.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Ok. Desculpe. Boa tarde.
Tarde.
Onde fica a farmácia?
Ao fim da rua, vire à esquerda. A farmácia fica à sua direita.
Desculpe, pode repetir?
Bom, a farmácia fica lá à frente. Você não tem nada que enganar. Vai por sempre à frente. Quando chegar ali ao sinal vermelho, vira à esquerda. Aos depois, há de ver ali... Não?
Ok, muito obrigada.
Alright, so we're now in the pharmacy, Carla.
Ok. Olá, boa tarde. O meu marido tem uma constipação.
Há quanto tempo?
Há 2 dias.
Ok. Experimente isto.
Quanto custa?
3,05 €.
Vou levar. Obrigada.
Alright, so that small, but there's a lot of information we can take out from that. Yeah? Alright, so should we break it down a little bit, Carla?
Yeah. Okay. So I should be saying, in English, it's I'm sorry or excuse me for desculpe, and then good afternoon is boa tarde. So if you want to say excuse me in Portuguese, you should be saying desculpe. Desculpe. Desculpe, boa tarde. Boa tarde. Desculpe, boa tarde. Got it?
Alright, so the way I answered was sort of a shortened way of boa tarde. I just said tarde, which many people would say in Portugal.
Drop
Much
the
like you would
first
do here, right? You just say
Afternoon.
morning or something
Yeah,
like that. Right?
that's right.
So tarde is the greeting in this case.
That's right, yeah. So the next line would be, where is the chemist? Onde? Onde? Fica. Fica. Onde fica? Onde fica? A farmácia. What you laughing at?
I'm laughing at anything.
Farmácia. Let me do this again. Farmácia. Farmácia. A farmácia. Onde fica a farmácia? Onde fica a farmácia?
In case you weren't absolutely sure, you're supposed to repeat after Carl.
Sorry, I may have not given them enough time.
That's all right. They'll have to learn quickly. All right, good. So if you notice there, farmácia is very similar to the English word pharmacy. Okay, so you probably get some of these words even by just association. All right, so the gentleman giving directions, the first time he gave the lady pretty simple directions. He said, ao fim da rua, vire à esquerda. A farmácia fica à sua direita. So let's break it down. Ao fim da rua, vire à esquerda. At the end of the road, turn left. The pharmacy will be on your right. A farmácia fica à sua direita. So, at the end of the road, ao fim da rua, ao fim da rua, then turn left, vire à esquerda, vire à esquerda. And all in all, ao fim da rua, vire à esquerda. So now the pharmacy is on your right. A farmácia fica à sua direita. A farmácia fica à sua direita.
Excellent.
All right, so is there anything that we ought to explain there? I mean, it's pretty clear. Esquerda means left.
Mm-hmm.
Direita is right.
Exato.
And notice you always use the little a, esquerda or a, direita.
Sim. E também o verbo ficar, não é? A farmácia fica à sua direita.
You are speaking all in Portuguese, you realize that.
Okay, I forget. Yeah, and also the verb ficar it translates literally into English to become, but sometimes in sentences like this, it can be translated into the verb to be. Maybe a little bit too deep, as in the pharmacy is or will be on your right. So to be, even though we are using the verb ficar, which literally means to become, but sometimes it will translate into to be. Did you get that, Marlon?
Yes.
Never really thought about that one, did you?
Well, you're the teacher. I'm just here to help out.
My assistant.
Right, go on, Carla.
Okay, então, so then we should say, if we don't understand what they're saying, we could say, I'm sorry, can you repeat? Desculpe. So as we said, desculpe translates into I'm sorry or excuse me. So in this case, you mean I'm sorry. Desculpe. Repeat after me. Desculpe. Pode repetir pode repetir. Desculpe, pode repetir.
Okay, so then the gentleman repeated, but not in a way that you would understand anyway, so we won't translate that bit. So you then simply acknowledge their help.
Ok, muito obrigada. Ok, muito obrigada. Obrigada. Muito obrigada.
All right, so that literally, muito is much. Obrigada is like the oblige, so much obliged. That's literally what you're saying, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. Which the man will say, de nada, won't it? You're welcome.
Yeah, de nada. We should have added that.
Just like the Spanish.
Yeah. So now you eventually found a little pharmacy or chemist, and you greet the person. We'll go from there, Carla.
Yeah. So I'll come in and I'll be saying, hello, good afternoon. My husband has a cold. It sounded like my husband had a constipation in Portuguese. Let me repeat for you. Olá, boa tarde. O meu marido tem uma constipação. I have actually made that mistake when I first moved into this country. That was slightly embarrassing. I told the whole world I was constipated. when I meant I had a cold. Never mind.
Well, it sort of is a constipation, just on
Yes,
your
you blocked up
respiratory organs instead of
Yes.
your other organs.
I
Anyway,
guess. Yeah. Okay. So, hello, good afternoon. Olá, boa tarde. Olá, boa tarde. My husband has a cold. O meu marido tem o meu marido tem uma constipação. Olá, boa tarde. O meu marido tem uma constipação. Olá, boa tarde. O meu marido tem uma constipação.
okay, good. So we've acknowledged that he's got a cold. So the man at the chemist's will then ask, as they often do, how long has this been going on for? The simpler way of putting this in Portuguese would be há quanto tempo? For how long? Há quanto tempo? Tempo. Há quanto tempo? All right.
Okay, and the answer could be, it's been 2 days. Há 2 dias. Há 2 dias. Há 2 dias.
All right. So the chemist will find something there and he'll say, okay, try this. Ok. Experimente isto. Experimente isto. Isto. Ok? Experimente isto. Try this.
So obviously I will want to know how much. So we can just say, quanto custa? Quanto custa? Quanto custa? How much?
Yep. A few numbers here for you. So it will cost €3.05. Right? Now that would be in Portuguese 3 euros e 5 cêntimos. 3 euros. 3 euros e 5 cêntimos. 3 euros e 5 cêntimos.
I'll take it, thank you. Vou levar. Vou levar. Levar. Vou levar. Obrigada. Vou levar. Obrigada.
All right, good. So we can build on that on future lessons. I think that's pretty good for today. Was there something from last week that you wanted to just add?
Yes, I wanted to tell our listeners that, yes, when we ask for an espresso in Portuguese, many people ask for uma bica, but it's also common to ask for café, a coffee, meaning an espresso, café.
Right, okay. But they'll understand you
Absolutely.
either way, right? Unless you, I don't know. If you went to the, I lived in Madeira for a few years. I think if you said bica there, they'll be a bit confused. I'm not sure.
There might be, yeah. I think apparently it's...
my bica. That's what they would say.
Yeah. Well, you might not even understand them.
They have a very strong accent in Madeira, by the way. The Azores is even worse, but I can tell that when my mum meets with all the family members.
Yeah, it gets a little
Just
crazy.
to give you an idea, for example, airport in Portuguese would be aeroporto, right? But in Madeira, they'll say aeroport.
Okay.
Aeroport.
That's with a funny voice like that.
With a funny voice as well, but in some words, they're completely different. So it really depends where you go. Especially for a learner, if you're starting in Portuguese, it really would throw you off completely.
Could I just say, I think...
You can say, Carla.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have mentioned number
should
1, haven't we, when we said uma constipação.
Uh-huh.
That is the feminine way of saying one, because in Portugal in Portuguese we have masculine and feminine. And the masculine way is which I think we have mentioned on the first podcast. So today you have learned a few numbers. 1, 2, 3 e 5. So we're missing number 4, so I thought we might as well teach our listeners number 4.
All right. Okay, so let's see. I was trying to think of something with 4 bits, but I can't. Anyway.
A car with 4 wheels, I don't know.
4 wheels, yeah. 4 wheels in a car. Anyway. 4. 4. There's an Audi with the name like that, isn't like four-wheel drive. They call it a quattro, I think, or something.
I have no idea.
All right. So we come to our bit where we talk. Hello, a bit of a frog there. We talk a little bit about
my husband has a cold, isn't it? How appropriate.
No, I don't have a cold. That's not true.
Okay.
A little bit of research for you. I think this is an interesting one. I've been reading a little bit about brain plasticity. If you've never heard of that expression, all our brains, it is now well understood, are plastic in the sense that they can adapt. They're a bit like plasticine or Play-Doh, if you think of that. Depending on your needs and depending on perhaps a bit of a trauma that you might have had, either physical or not, or psychological, the brain can adapt to that. It can grow different neurons to deal with a certain situation, which is fantastic. Now, how is that going to help you with learning a language? Well, for example, it is understood now that one of the best treatments for somebody who has a stroke, let's say you have a stroke, by a stroke, of course, you mean that a blood clot goes into your brain and blocks blood flow to a certain area of your brain. So, whatever's behind that blockage is dead. So the neurons are now dead. Now imagine that because of that blockage, because of that necrosis, that your left arm is left unusable, right? Because the part of your brain, the map of the brain that control that arm is gone.
You mean paralyzed?
Yeah, so you can't move it. The best way of treating that, it is now understood, is actually to immobilize your right arm or your good arm. What that will do is that will force the brain to find another area in it to then map the left arm, and you'll start to use it again. Maybe not to the full extent, not 100% rehabilitation, but you will certainly see an improvement. If you did not do that, if you did not immobilize the right arm or the good arm, because you would always be using it and relying on it, the brain would have no reason to be plastic, to adapt, if you know what I mean.
So what you're trying to say, how does that apply to our learning Portuguese?
Right, or any other language. When you learn a language, it is best to be immersed in that language, to be
expose yourself as much as you can.
Yes, a bit like that arm. If you know your good language, your native language, and if you have the opportunity to use it, you will rely on it, and the brain won't have any reason to push itself to learn the new language. So one of the best ways of learning a language is to actually go to that country where the language is spoken, and you're going to be completely forced to speak the language. And the brain will find a space It won't be. It's funny because the brain won't save that new language, if I can use that word, in the same area as the native language. That's why we can never have a perfect accent after the age of 12 or thereabouts, because it's actually saved in another section of the brain. But it will force the brain to find a way of putting that memory there. I mean, not everybody has the possibility of traveling to another country, but...
Or to stay as long or long enough to learn the language. So what could we advise our listeners, what can they do to expose themselves to whatever language they want to learn? Obviously, we're talking about Portuguese.
Yeah, well, there's many things you can do. Part of it, I suppose, is your attitude towards things. If you know somebody that speaks the language, then force yourself to speak that language. Don't always rely on the English if this is your main language. But there's a lot of stuff you can do. I mean, a lot of people, we know quite a few people that got Portuguese television at home. And you can do that today just by using internet services. You can get radio. I often listen to Portuguese radio so I don't lose the language on a daily basis. There's a lot of stuff you
Listening
can do.
to music, Portuguese music.
Yeah. Reading books. I make sure that whenever I go to Portugal, I get at least a book that I come back and read through.
Start with basics, even if it's children's books.
Yeah.
It's a beginning. And then you can get into more complex books when it comes to the writing.
One thing that is very well understood is that you will not learn unless you're some sort of a genius. You will not learn a language unless you expose yourself to that language for a couple of hours a day, minimum.
So audiobooks actually would be a good idea, wouldn't it?
Yeah, audiobooks are great. Really good. Yeah. But normally the radio I listen to is sort of like BBC 4 sort of radio. Radio that I know is well, it's got a good language, and it won't be heavily music based. There will be a lot of conversation and a lot of narrative. So yeah, that's my tip for today. Plasticity of the brain plays a huge part in learning a language, and knowing
brilliant.
that's there can help you. All right, Carla.
Yes,
is there anything else that you want to say?
Not really. I just hope that you have enjoyed our podcast.
Right.
And I hope to see you or to...
You won't see them.
No.
Well, they can do, because if they want to learn more...
So all you have to do is go on PortugueseWithCarla.com. But yeah, I hope, you can get to listen to us real soon, which I'm sure you will.
We'll try and put one of these out, hopefully every week, as time allows.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Ciao. If you've enjoyed that video, make sure to check our blog where we post weekly lessons and articles on learning Portuguese and Portuguese culture. You can even subscribe to our newsletter so you can get it delivered automatically. For that, go to PortugueseWithCarla.com.